Once you kick that door through, you won't hear. I mean, I don't know about everyone else. You gonna hear drill music for me because that's where I started at. But you're not gonna hear names, none of that.
Teenage rapper Lee Drilly began his hip-hop career with a bang by unleashing the hit track Final Destination back in February of 2021. And from that point forward, his career would explode in an upwards trajectory, and he's been releasing music at a breakneck pace ever since, dropping new singles at least once a month up until news broke earlier this year that he and 19 other associates had been arrested in a citywide sting that was determined to use drill rappers' own music against them. It was reportedly his music video to Bet that acted as the smoking gun to be used against him, and now Lee Drilly has found himself in a whole boatload of trouble. Since the arrest, Lee has been behind bars, and whether or not he'll still have a music career left when he gets out is just one question about his future that's in desperate need of answering. So if you ever wanted to find out how Lee Drilly's past played into his current predicament, then stay tuned to our newest episode of Before They Were Famous to find out. Lee Drilly was born Ali Dobby in the neighborhood of Fordham in the Bronx. His exact age is something of a question mark, and he hasn't ever revealed his birthday to the best of my knowledge. But going off of court documents, he still is a teenager at only 19 years old, meaning he was probably born sometime in 2003. According to a Facebook profile I discovered under his government name, Lee grew up in the Bronx while attending Promise Academy in Central Harlem. After graduating from there, conceivably sometime in the past year or two, Lee would move on to studying at Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Ohio. Whether that was through in-person learning or remotely online, I'm not exactly sure. But something does tell me that either way, Lee's music career probably put a stop to his time in post-secondary long before his issues with the law ever cropped up. In fact, going by what prosecutors would later accuse him of, Lee very well may have spent more time outside of class than in it. I mean, after all, he was reportedly a member of the G-Side Drilly gang. Now, this is a subset of Blood, Sex, Money, Murder, a group responsible for dozens of acts of violence in the areas of East Gun Hill Road, Hull Avenue, and Decatur Avenue in the Big Apple. Lee Drilly likes to say that spending his childhood in these often dangerous streets taught him the importance of loyalty, while also offering him a glimpse at both sides of the world, good, bad.
There's a lot of good and bad. You feel me?
Both. There's both.
Yeah, it's good that coming to it's bad that coming to. It's like that everywhere though.
Exactly.
On those rare occasions when Lee had some downtime to spare, he'd show flashes of the artists we'd come to know later by writing poetry for school-based projects, most of which would even get singled out as the very best in the class when he was asked to present it. Now, you may think having talent like that behind the pen would give Lee a leg up when he eventually transitioned into writing his first rap lyrics. But according to him, it never really did. Looking back at it now, he believes that some of his first bars were embarrassingly amateurish and didn't hit nearly as hard as they should have. Now, perhaps because of this, Lee never really considered becoming a rapper, at least not until his good friend, Spaz Drilly, would find himself locked up. The crew that Lee came to associate himself with was a group created by a bunch of older guys from his hood, who took to calling themselves Drilly, an acronym for Devoted, Resilient, Intelligent, Living Lavish, Young. Prior to hitching his wagon to this collective, Lee's biological father had kicked off a rap career of his own, under the name of Skino DG, which led to Lee flirting with the idea of becoming a rapper himself. And he briefly considered operating under the moniker of Lee Herbo. Guess your boy was a big G Herbo fan. But as soon as he hooked up with this new clique, he took on the moniker of Lee Drilly instead. After his good friend and mentor Spaz Drilly found himself locked up for a murder charge, Lee was looking to make as big of an impact as possible to hold it down for his buddy. So when he stepped into a professional studio for the first time, he was determined to put everyone on blast from the get-go, recording Final Destination, in which he intentionally mentioned as many of his ops as possible to fit into one song. After Final Destination would land Lee Drilly on the hip-hop map in February of 2021, he set to work by spreading the word about his friend's predicament with a couple of singles titled Free Spaz Parts 1 and 2. He dropped the music videos to those tracks as his first releases on his official YouTube channel, where they'd rack up a combined 1 million streams in the span of just 1 year. Spaz would later hear those tracks from inside a prison cell and encourage Lee to keep churning out more bangers, while keeping his nose clean and out of trouble. Well, at least Lee was able to accomplish one of those things. Looking to follow his friend's advice, Lee barely took any time out from the studio, where he'd go on an absolute tear, recording further hits with titles like Deadly, Public Service Announcement, and even a remix to 50 Cent's Many Men. By the beginning of 2022, Lee Drilly was bigger than ever, collaborating with other artists like E-Woo for songs like No Escape and Bet, the latter of which would wind up coming back to bite Lee in the ass. big time. Along with a host of other Bronx drill music videos, Lee Drilly's bet was the primary focus when it came to a developing investigation being undertaken by the NYPD known as Operation Drilly. In April of 2022, the Bronx District Attorney and New York City Police Department released a 4-page, 82-count indictment related to 32 crimes, all of which were aided with the use of music and videos that emerged from the city's thriving drill music scene. These indictments would lead to the arrest of 20 individuals, one of whom was Lee Drilly himself, and he's now facing charges of conspiracy, murder-manslaughter, attempted murder, criminal possession of a weapon, reckless endangerment, assault, attempted assault, and grand larceny. The police believe that all 20 individuals in question are members of the aforementioned G-Side Drilly gang, and that these men took active part in carrying out crimes all throughout the city of New York between September of 2018 and March of this year. For instance, in January of 2019, multiple defendants allegedly surrounded an 18-year-old high school prep student while he was leaving class and attempted to rob him. The victim was severely injured during the attack and was stabbed with a knife, resulting in the need of emergency resuscitation and blood transfusions to save his life. About a year and a half later, in July of 2020, 6 more defendants, all of whom were teenagers at this time, gave chase to a 24-year-old James Rivera. After catching up with them, 4 of the defendants allegedly shot the victim multiple times, while another defendant stabbed him as he fell to the ground. Rivera would not survive the attack. Shortly thereafter, in September of that same year, 2 minor-age defendants were said to have fired shots in a busy commercial area of the city, not far away from the MTA subway station. Despite the potential harm to come to many innocents, thankfully nobody was reported injured. Upon the arrest of these 20-some-odd people, 7 of them were arraigned while the other 13 were placed in custody to await arraignment. Ali Dobby, aka Lee Drilly, was one of those 7 individuals who was immediately arraigned. If convicted, it's believed that Drilly could be facing a minimum of 15 to 25 years, and quite possibly life in state prison. Since his arrest, we understandably haven't seen much of this young and talented rapper, but he hasn't disappeared completely. Not only has he provided us with a freestyle over the phone from his prison cell,
shit done changed since I got arrested. I just been staying waiting for my sentence. This life, so I gotta respect that. And when I come home, I got deals pending. Like at first, I was in here stripping. Felt like the days in here was never ending. But now I know this shit a lesson. Gotta fix it quick before you get a blessing.
But his people on the outside have dropped the occasional single that he must have stockpiled before all this came on down on top of him, including the recently released and aptly titled Demon Time. Will Lee Drilly find himself a free man once again in the coming days, weeks, or even months? I mean, it's impossible to say for sure, but his predicament is dicey to say the least. I mean, when you're dealing with a sting operation that large, unraveling yourself from it can become an extremely complicated matter. And if the police are as intent as they appear to be to use Lee Drilly's own music against them, well, let's be honest, man, in the span of just 1 year, he sure did give them a lot of ammunition to use. As for how this ultimately shakes out, well, we're just gonna have to keep our eyes peeled. After all, this is before they were famous. Thank you everybody for watching our newest episode on Lee Drilly. Please remember to leave some comments down below on what you thought about his story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications before you leave. And if you'd like to check out a few other entries in this series, then why not check out our looks into the come-ups of Sugar Hill D-Dot, Sugar Hill Keem, and DD Osama. My name is Clyde Smith, and I'll see you guys in another video. Do I need a new sign-off? Is the salute getting played out? I don't know. Free Lee Drilly, man. Damn.